A lot of people hear this term all the time, the 1%. Now, what is the 1%? How much money does it take to be in the 1%? How bad is the gap between the 1% and the 99%? What's all the information we need there, because some people will tell you, you got to hate the 1%. I mean, why do they say that? Do you need to? Do you not need to? Let's talk about some stuff. Because, a lot of people might perceive being wealthy as simply having a nice house or money in your bank account, time to take a vacation wherever you want, a vacation home, maybe even a yacht, right? Something crazy. But the kind of money that the wealthiest 1% of the world's households has, it dwarfs that idea. Now, this segment of the population owns entire corporations, multi-billion-dollar investment funds, islands in, the Caribbean, and it's just they just have so much money. Now, the average net worth of the 1% or the richest 1% of the global's population, households, it's mushroomed over the past 2 decades. It's now towering higher above the net worth of, the average citizen than ever before. And I want to go over some of the facts about the 1%. Well, let's start off with a demographic breakdown. Okay. So before looking at the demographics of the top 1%, it's important to understand just how much, this portion of the population earns. Now, according to the Economic Policy Institute's December 2020 figures, gaining entry into the top 1% club, requires an average annual income of about $750,000. Now, that is a very far gap from the annual income of about $40,000 reported by the average taxpayer, right? The bottom 90%. The wealth gap in the US continues to widen, with about 1.4 million people falling into the top 1% of households. Those who want to become part of the top 0.01% would need to live in a household making an average of $2.9 million annually. Now, although the media and politicians have largely portrayed this group as greedy, uncaring Wall Street, people, demographic analysis reveals a very different picture. The wealthiest 1% are spread across many industries and come from a plethora of backgrounds. They include medical professionals, entrepreneurs, executives, as well as people who have just inherited their wealth. According to IRS data, the top 1% earned nearly 21% of the total adjusted gross income in the US and paid just over 40% of all federal income taxes. They also accounted for just under 1/3 of all charitable donations. Well, of course, this isn't just a US thing, this is worldwide. The number of billionaires on the Forbes 35th annual list of the world's wealthiest exploded to an unprecedented 2,755, right? 660 more, you know, from, 2020. So, an extra 660 in 1 year. Now, altogether, they're worth about 13.1 trillion, up from about 8 trillion on the previous year's list. Now, WealthX, a wealth intelligence research and marketing firm that is also part of the Euromoney Institutional Investor PLC group, puts it slightly higher. According to its 2020 billionaire census, the population of billionaires amounted to 2,825 globally in 2019, up from 8.5% in 2018. There were 834 billionaires in North America and 847 in Europe, though North America's billionaires had more wealth at 3.5 trillion compared to 2.5 trillion to Europe's. China and Germany and the US, they're the top 3 countries in terms of the number of billionaires. China had 342 with a combined wealth of 1.2 trillion. Germany listed 153 with 477 billion in combined wealth. The US beat out both for the top spot though, with 788 billionaires and a total wealth of 3.4 trillion. Now, The other nations that will round out that group is going to be Russia, Switzerland, the UK, Hong Kong, India, Saudi Arabia, and then, of course, France. So let's talk about that gap, all right? The widening gap. I mean, the Economic Policy Institute reports that the net worth of the top 1% of American households has risen substantially. In 1962, the wealthiest 1% had net worths equal to approximately 125 times that of the average American household. Their net worths were shown to be approximately 225 times the net worth of the average household in 2009. The gap between the richest and the poorest more than doubled between 1982 and 2016. The minimum net worth of the top 1% of households is roughly 11.1 million. The top 10% on the other hand has a net worth of about 1.2 million. The wealth of the middle class is also rising, but it primarily rose between 1970 and 2000. Median income increased by 41% during this time at an annual average rate of 1.2%. But from 2000 to 2018, the rate was 0.3%. Now, the wealth of the top 1% continues to, outstrip that of the entire middle class. In fact, the top earners hold more wealth than the middle and upper classes put together. There's a variety of reasons for the disparity, but one chief factor is that they own more than 50% of the equity in both private and public companies. Right? They've also benefited from surges in the stock market. These gains help them reinvest their money back into exclusive investments like hedge funds and private equity ventures. Now, let's take a look at some of these underlying causes. Like, why is all this happening? Why? Much of the growing disparity, it can be traced to tax breaks on income, gift, estate tax, as well as the decline of labor unions, right? More, specifically in America. Although the middle class has benefited somewhat from the reduction in taxes, it allowed the wealthy to retain a much greater portion of their assets and pass them on to their heirs. In fact, there's been a lot of debate about how the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts of 2017, passed by the Trump administration, has influenced the wealthiest Americans. Through the Trump White House consistently defended the bill, saying it helped put money back in the pockets of middle class, others have disagreed. For example, in their book, The Triumph of Justice, in 2019, economists Emmanuel Saez and Gabrielle Zuckman argue the tax reform bill gave the country's wealthiest households an effective lower average tax rate than the rest of the U.S. population. Those who fall in the bottom 50%, 23% versus 25% for the working and middle class, and 28% for the upper middle class. The technology boom also added new members to the top percentile of the wealthiest, as was shown by the annual Forbes list of the 400 wealthiest Americans. Their members' combined net worth was $3.2 trillion in 2020. So what criticisms can we give to or not give to the top 1%? Well, there's been a lot of criticism, right? Especially of the world's ultra rich, especially those living in the United States. They've been accused of hoarding wealth and lobbying for tax breaks and not contributing their fair share in taxes. Responding to the criticism, a lot of politicians they're calling for more taxes on the wealthy, right? Senator Elizabeth Warren proposed a tax on ultra millionaires as part of her campaign to become the Democratic presidential candidate for the 2020 election. Senator Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, has pushed for an estate tax hike, meaning billionaire heirs would pay more in taxes. Well, what's their rationale here? Well, taxing the ultra rich would help cut down on the nation's income inequality. Now, President Joe Biden has also proposed significant increases in taxes on the wealthy. Outlined in April of 2021, they include raising the top marginal income tax rate to 39.6%, starting with individuals earning $400,000 a year from the current 37%, starting at people earning more than $518,000 a year. Now, the top tax rate on capital gains and unqualified dividends would also rise to 39.6%, up from a maximum of 20% now. Biden also wishes to increase the corporate rate to 28%. That's a lot of changes. So, What do we learn from all this? What are our takeaways? What can we gain from this? Okay, well, the minimum net worth of the top 1% is about $11 million. Now, a person would need to earn an average of almost $760,000 per year in order to join the top 1%. The number of billionaires globally is about 2,800, and their numbers have been growing dramatically. That means more and more people are continually joining that group. Now, wages for the top 1% of households from 1979 to 2019 rose over 160%, compared to 26% for those in the bottom 90%. And of course, the widening gaps in wealth and income stem from a variety of factors, including the wealthiest, increasing dominance of public and private equity and tax breaks. Now, a lot of this, like especially, just paying attention to public and private equity and tax breaks, right? This is why you hear a lot of people say if you want to be wealthy, that's what you buy real estate, get your tax breaks, invest in companies, right? Pay less taxes on this and that. There's ways to join, and you don't need to be making $760,000 a year to be in the top 1%. But if you're steady over the years, and you can slowly do these things and get there. I had someone point out to me at one point, if you managed to buy one house every other year for 10 years, that's 5 houses in 10 years, right? You would be worth over $1 million, right? Or if you bought one house a year for 5 years, now that sounds like a lot, but if you're only putting 3.5% down, you see where I'm going? So you can do this, guys. I promise. You think this is way out of your reach and it's impossible? It's not. You can do it. And if you like this video, I really appreciate you subscribing to the channel, hitting that thumbs up button, share it with your friends. But until I see you guys in the next video, y'all be safe.